Today we are going to be talking about extending OS X management systems with scripting. We're not going to be talking about MDM or MTM today, but I'm personally excited about the future possibilities of MTM.
MTM?
Yeah. How many of you are looking forward to mobile timepiece management?
Possibly coming this fall from Apple.
I'll let you pause for the pictures. Come on, Harry. All right. Or another way to put it, we're here to talk about management agents with scripting. Sneaky people. So you're going to have to see other sessions for the tie-ins for the Dark Loop and Captain Asset, the Winter Inventory.
I'd like to point out, I'd just like to say that the bad jokes are Jeremy's.
This is nothing unusual. My comedy career was over before it started. I expected heckling there. So I'm Jeremy Reichman, and I would like to publicly thank Rich Troughton for agreeing to put up with me in the course of developing this talk, and for all of you in the live audience who have decided to cram into this room. Many of you know that Rich writes a lot of bash scripts, and I tend to write a lot of Python in my more lucid moments. And at first, we thought this sounded like a classic chocolate versus peanut butter rivalry, which is great in a state that has Hershey and the Penn State Berkey Creamery. But then during WWDC in June, Apple introduced its new Swift programming language, which has a shebang line, and you can try to run it in a script if you want. And if you do end up coding in Swift, you might like to join this gang. You can apparently recognize Swift users by their sheer enthusiasm and hand signs.
So let's get into what we'll be covering today. We'll be providing some general guidelines to work with many management systems. If you showed up expecting us to teach you how to script, I'm very sorry, that's not what this session is about. We're going to be showing you how to script with your management solutions, and then focus more specifically on payload-free packages, Monkey, and Casper. So, we want to show you where these scripts fit in, what kind of environments they execute in, and how almost without exception, management tools, when they run scripts, are running either as they're running scripts as root or with a highly privileged user account. So there will likely come a time when you turn to scripting when managing Macs, whether or not you write the script yourself, you find it linked to somewhere like Jamf Nation, or you search GitHub to find just what you need. No management tool can do everything, so scripts can fill in the gaps. Like for example, you may have a request from your management to do a particular task, or you have a client request from a customer, and it needs more than your management system is providing out of the box. Or you may simply need to fix a problem that's come up, like for example, did you know that Flash updated again? So we can't explain everything in one session, so we did have to set some limits. So here's what we're not going to cover. Like I said, we are not going to tell you how to script. This is a good learning process. You should learn how to do it yourself. We're not going to tell you how to do it yourself. And hopefully you attended the other sessions that helped teach you how to do this. We're not going to tell you what languages to use, because come on, people. People get tetchy about this subject. We're not going to tell you what language to use. And we're especially not going to tell you what text editor to use, because seriously, people get into arguments on how to quit out of your text editor. That is something I'm not touching at all.
So one thing that we should stress is that scripts run by management tools are often run across an entire fleet of managed clients. And such scripts may be run many, many times a day. For that reason, whether you're writing your own scripts or using someone else's, you should try your best to eliminate crashes, unending loops, and degrading the performance of your managed computers. That's even before you start considering security of what you may be running with that code. So there are a couple of common low-impact debugging techniques for scripts that we've used. Most of these are useful at the command line in the terminal. And shell commands and scripts have an exit status, so you can check the command line. Check that at the command line using the echo command. And a script can send messages to the system's logs or simply print some progress output. And the default bash shell can also print each step it performs when running a script with the bash x command. So you just add the path to the script at the end of that. Shell commands have an exit status that indicates success, failure, and other conditions. Of special note, there are two similar functions in Python for this. So we've got Bash and Python examples. In Python, there's exit versus sysexit. And when I was looking this up, I found that exit is useful for the interactive interpreter shell and should not be used in programs. For scripts, they recommend using sysexit. There are various ways to check your code quality. For Python scripts, one of the things I tend to use is bbflake, a bbedit extension that uses Flake 8 as its code checking tool. And that is a Python module you can also run. Scripts can also be tested in VMs and on a test computer that they verify to run as expected. And you may want to do this on a number of computers just to make sure you get all of the conditions that you might run across. Hey, Rich, you had good luck with Login Log, right?
Yeah, I love this tool. This is a tool written by Per Olofsson, otherwise known as Megervalp. He was nice enough to share this up on GitHub. And what it is, it's a program that just, you point a log at it, and it just displays. And this is great because you can have, a little window showing your script as it's running, or so you're using that for debugging, or you can use this to provide output to your users. Like the example I have up on the screen is using first boot package install. So, for example, this will pop up over the login window and show your users exactly what's going on while first boot package install is running.
Hey, Rich, turn your mic up a little bit.
Folks in the back, would you mind turning up my microphone a little bit?
It's
Sorry.
Rich's mic.
Keep talking. Keep talking.
Hello, hello. Can people hear me now? Yes. Don't cry for me, Argentina.
What an ad lib.
Ah.
So be careful what you sing. No, just be careful what you're scripting. Whether you're writing your own scripts or reviewing those from others, pay attention to situations that may have unintended consequences, like standing in front of lots of people. If the script will already be running with elevated permissions through your management tool, which is the typical case, you shouldn't need to also sudo it.
Yeah, when you run sudo, you're basically saying, I need to run this with elevated privileges. But when you run sudo in a script that's already running with elevated privileges, you're basically saying, I want to run elevated privileges and more elevated privileges. You don't get more privileges. They're already elevated.
So having one installer call another with the installer command can be done as well, but consider the alternative of having two or more separate deployments instead.
Yeah, I'm one of those folks who tends to do this calling installer inside of installer thing. I would encourage you to know exactly what you're doing when you do that, because there may be unintended consequences. So know what you're doing.
And if you have to switch context, like from the root user to a specific user, you may come across launch control bsexec. And that's an option, but perhaps there's a different solution, like a launch agent for all users that would run directly in each of those users' context. So you can avoid that context switch. There are also tools that may change between versions of OS X, such as curl and Ruby, which changed between Mountain Lion and Mavericks, and DiskUtil, which added Fusion drive support between 10.7 and 10.8. There are also items which are simply not included, like the useful Python requests module, and so you have to watch out for those situations. You can write or use scripts that depend upon these things, but you have to adapt for their changes or make sure you have those dependencies installed before you use them. The Recovery HD or OS X installer environment is also a unique one for scripting. There are a limited number of commands and utilities available, and so this link leads to a list of the executables in these environments on an OS X Maverick system. Or it did before this session, now it's going to lead to Rick Astley. So Deploy Studio has optional support for Python and Ruby. If you need either of those runtimes for scripts, which may be in packages, be sure to tick the checkboxes when you're creating the Deploy Studio runtime.
And a good example of that is if you're using Greg Nagel's Create OS X Install PKG. If you're installing it with Deploy Studio, that needs Python. So if you're going to be running it there, make sure to tick off that Python support for your Deploy Studio boot set.
It's really easy to get into cases where you've made assumptions in the course of scripting. We've all done it. maybe several times a week. So you want to account for the libraries and frameworks that you need in your scripts. If you absolutely need something that doesn't come with OS X, be sure that you deploy it to your managed clients and try to deploy it well in advance of when you need it. If your script needs to, verify that it can run both at the login window and with logged in users. And if you have fast user switching, you might want to test with that as well so that you have multiple logged in users. Scripts can also fail when network or DNS resolution is unavailable. We'll probably all run into that. And you may also end up depending in some cases on remote resources like an HTTP server. So verify that you can work with and without that. You can adapt for when that resource is missing. And if you need to depend upon directory services, they can disappoint you. I mean, they've probably been doing that to us for 15 years. And if you happen to be working with users in groups, specifying them by UID or GID directly may be a way to work around some of those issues with directory connectivity.
And one thing to just keep in mind, if your script depends on a resource being available, write in a check for that. And if it fails, provide a way for your script to exit gracefully. You know, because nothing's worse than just having your script train wreck. So, first thing we want to talk about are payload-free packages. Payload-free packages are installer packages that install no files and have been built to run only scripts. Now, there are two types of payload-free installer packages. There's bundle style and there's flat. So, bundle style payload-free installer packages are created as a Mac OS X bundle that contains scripts and a description of the package requirements and the behavior. Now, as part of creating a bundle style package, you can define scripts that will be executed before or after the installation. Now, normally, there are 6 types of scripts that can be used with a bundle-style package. However, for bundle-style payload-free packages, there's only 2 types of scripts that are used, the pre-flight and the post-flight scripts. The other types of scripts depend on something being installed, and one of the defining characteristics of a payload-free package is nothing's being installed. So when Apple created the flat package format, they simplified the script options and made only 2 script options available. The bundle-style post and pre-install and pre- and post-update scripts options were removed. Apple retained the concept of pre- and post-flight scripts, but they renamed the script categories to pre-install and post-install to make their functions more clear. So if you're looking at a bundle-style package and it's got a pre-install script, that's not necessarily the same as what it means for a flat package's pre-install script. So both pre-install and post-install scripts can be used in a payload-free package. So you can have 2 scripts actually, put inside. And a commonality between scripts used in bundle-style and flat payload-free packages is that the scripts must return an exit status of 0, or else installer will report failure. So if you've ever written something and it seems fine, runs fine in terminal, but you put it into a payload-free package and you see this, it didn't return exit 0. So if you're building a shell script for a payload-free package, one way to ensure that the script returns a status of 0 is by explicitly adding exit 0 to the end of your script. When building a payload-free package, it's helpful to know that the installer application can automatically pass along information to the script using variables, and the ones shown on the screen are for shell scripts. So here's an example of using the $3 variable in a payload-free package script. Now, in this case, we're able to take advantage of the installer telling us which drive the package is being installed on to have our script run actions on that targeted drive. Now, one thing that's important to know is that the closest set of variables to the script is going to win. So if your system management tool assigns $3 to something different than installer does, the installer assigned meaning is what's going to win. That's what's going to be used by your script inside that payload-free package. And one thing to be aware of, because I got bit by this, is that payload-free flat packages may not leave an installer receipt behind. When you're building a payload-free package with Apple's package build tool using the payload-free flag, no receipt is left behind. And in fact, I filed a bug on that, which you can see on the screen. So when I filed my bug, Apple said that this was intended behavior for payload-free packages built using package build. In Apple's opinion, according to the bug report, payload-free packages are a convenient bag for scripts. Any other type of package will leave a receipt behind, including a bundle-style payload-free package. So why is this important? If your systems management tool relies on receipts to tell whether or not a payload-free package has been installed, a payload-free package that leaves no receipt behind means that your management tool won't be able to tell it's installed. That may result in the payload free package and its associated script being run repeatedly on your managed systems. Now, I have heard that you're not a real Monkey admin until you've made Monkey Loop a few times, but still, this is...
So we are at the point where we're going to talk about making a Monkey do some scripting tricks. Monkey uses a smart client installed on each computer, and that client makes a lot of choices, from figuring out what its own name is, to figuring out what server to talk to, and ultimately finding out what needs to be deployed to the system. Each time the Managed Software Update tool runs, a number of scripts can be triggered. There's a pre-flight script at the beginning and a post-flight script at the end. The admin-provided conditions are also triggered so that they can add information that can be used to target deployments at the Monkey manifest and package info level. You must deploy all of these scripts first before they are used, because there is one pre-flight and one post-flight script. It is possible to create one of either of them that runs other scripts, like all the scripts in a folder. But that's not a built-in feature of Monkey. You can have as many admin-provided conditional scripts as you need. The pre-flight, post-flight, and conditional scripts can also be removed when they are no longer needed. And if you deploy them with Monkey, Monkey can then remove them. Pre-flight and post-flight scripts then bookend a Monkey client check-in. They have specific requirements for naming, location, and permissions. And they are passed a parameter that tells, for example, whether Monkey was started manually by the user or by an automated background check, which may be useful depending on what you're trying to accomplish with your scripts. The Monkey Web Admin report script is probably one of the most common of these types of scripts, and it's run in the post-flight position. Since Managed Software Update exits if the pre-flight script does not exit as 0, that could be used to check for the right conditions for Monkey to run, like server availability. Or you could use it to modify something else about a Monkey run. There's been some creative things, including some things that are on the Monkey wiki. Conditionals are an intermediate or advanced Monkey feature. There are built-in conditions that collect useful information to target deployments to a finer degree. But Monkey allows this mechanism to be extended further with scripts. Otherwise, this would be a really short presentation. They have similar requirements to the pre-flight and post-flight scripts. Pay special attention, really, to how many resources are consumed and how long the script will run so that the data collection doesn't hang your system. You don't want every script checking all the output of System Profiler over and over again. Conditional scripts' purpose is to produce key value pairs, which are then written to the conditional items plist file. The key value pairs can be then used in queries in Monkey manifests and package info files. That conditional items plist file is temporary, so if you're troubleshooting a conditional script later, which we all tend to have to do, it always happens after you've written it, and it's out in production, right? Check the output of the managed install report plist. That will have that extra data in it. So that was an overview of using various scripts, but the heart of Monkey is really in the deployment phase. Within each deployment, there are a number of scripts that can help you accomplish your goals. The scripts let you expand upon Monkey's built-in capabilities during initial deployment, and should the need arise, subsequent software removals. All of this goes into the package info file. The package info file is a property list describing something that you deploy through Monkey. There are various kinds of deployment types, but unless you're deploying something from Adobe, most of the time you'll be referring to a package installer or something copied from a disk image. This is really the only place in Monkey that you'll see embedded scripts, though. The install and uninstall behavior can both be modified with scripts in the package info file. With this, the package info file specifies the steps to take when deploying or undoing a deployment. The install check script supersedes Monkey's other methods, the installs array and package receipts, of finding whether or not to deploy something. For uninstallation, when you already have an install check script, based on a hallway discussion with various sharp people the other day, thank you very much for those who were sitting around, it seems good to specify a corresponding uninstall check script just to make sure that you get the behavior that you expect. Notably, for software removals, you can specify a script to do the work rather than having Monkey remove copied or installed files. Your script may simply call the vendor's uninstall script if they provided or installed one, but be sure to test that in practice if you try that technique. To use an uninstall script, the uninstall method in the package info file must be set to uninstall script. The exit status of a script is especially important in Monkey. For the install check scripts, returning 0 means that the deployment is needed. Any other return code means that the deployment is skipped. For pre and post scripts, exiting 0 is a success. Other exit codes mean that the installation will complete, but that warnings will be logged. And some of you may care more or less about those. Finally, a non-zero exit status in any package script is treated as an installation failure. Monkey then wants to make sure that the client gets to its defined state, which means it needs to have that installed, so it will continue to try to reinstall that package. This can lead to install loops, cats and dogs living together, and mass hysteria. Now you know about where the scripts plug in. So there are two ways to get those scripts into a package info file. First, you can copy and paste an existing script into a package info file with your text editor of choice, BBEdit. If you do this, angle brackets may be manually escaped to avoid conflicts with the XML and the plist.
We weren't going to talk about that.
I know, but that's what I use. They know me by name at the support email address. Second, you can specify paths to the script files when using the monkey import and make package info commands. Since those scripts are somewhere on disk in that case, they could be coming from a version-controlled repository. And here is the syntax for adding 3 scripts to a package info. The / characters here are continuation markers, and the make package info command could have been written as one long line, but it's hard to fit that on slides and still have you be able to read it in the back. Those of you on video, I guess, probably wouldn't care. We can make the equivalent of a payload-free package, like Rich described, with what is known as a no package info in Monkey. And you have to decide if you're deploying things whether you want to use a no package or a payload-free package if you're using Monkey. That's something that you and your team should decide on if you are using this system. So let's take a look at an example. In this, the package info will consist of scripts for installation and removal. This is going to be a live demo using Discal. So for optimum network conditions, I'd like you to all pause your crash plan backups. I'm waiting. And you need to stop downloading the latest Yosemite build. Is everybody good? I'm just giving you a moment here.
Doing it live.
Doing it live. All right. Are we all set? Good. So I extended the truth. We're just doing slides. We're going to add or remove the ARD administrator group from the local directory service, because I'm sane. Monkey needs to know when to add the group and when not to. The script checks for the group's existence. And if some of you thought when I said sane, you thought ARD and sane? What's he talking about? First, Discal checks to see if the group exists. The exit status of the Discal command is stored. And if the exit status is 0, the group does exist. This install check takes this queue to exit 1. And that'll mean Monkey would run the install. If the Discal exit code is 56, don't ask me where they come up with that number. Under that, then the group doesn't exist. And on that condition, or any other exit status, because there are others that are equally weird, the install check script exits 0. This tells Monkey that the install should proceed. Sorry, I said that incorrectly on the last point. It's only when it exits 0. So testing on a stock Maverick system, the exit status should be 0. This means that if the script were being run by Monkey would try to run the installation described in the package info file. The installation happens to be empty. There's no package associated with this. So this is just like a payload-free package. So instead, the post-install script in the no package info creates the group. After testing that post-install script, the new exit status of the install check is 1. This means that the group has been created so that the install has been completed and won't be retried. If we needed to uninstall the ARD admin group for any reason, we can do that with this uninstall script. Finally, the uninstall check script determines if the uninstall process should be run. This happens to be happens if the Monkey administrator makes the no package a managed uninstall. The exit statuses are reversed in this case. Then add scripts to the new no package info. These command line options automatically set up the use of the optional uninstall check script as well. And that resulting no package looks something like this, but longer. And just doesn't fit on a slide, sorry.
So, another management tool that you can extend with scripting is Jamf Software's Casper Suite. Now, Casper works on a different management model than Monkey. When using Casper, management is centralized at the server level, and management is sent from the server down to the clients. So there are two main places where scripts can be used to extend Casper's capabilities. There's Casper extension attributes, and there's policies. As of Casper 9, scripts are stored inside of the Casper server's database and can be accessed via the computer management settings. Scripts can be added and edited via script editor that's built into the Casper web interface. You can also add scripts to your Casper server using the Casper admin application. Now, there is one thing to know about here. If you're using version control, you're going to have to version control them outside because now they're all going to be put up in the database. So, just have copies of your scripts, version control them separately. So if a client Mac supports a language, Casper supports running scripts written in that language on that client. So basically it's whatever, dude. When building scripts with Casper, it's helpful to know that Casper has certain reserved variables that can be used to pass along information to the script. However, the reserved variables are not the only ones available, as Casper supports a total of 11 variables that can be assigned to a script. One option you'll have with Casper is the ability to change the name of the parameter label to whatever you want. Now, these can be set on the script's options settings in either the Casper admin or in the Casper server script editor. However, this name change is for human convenience. The machine running the script will always see parameter 4 defined as $4. So Casper gives you the options to have scripts run before and after your policy actions. Now, this can be useful in a number of ways, with the good example being removing an old version of a software application before the policy runs and installs the new version. And by default, scripts will be set up with an after priority. So when you add them in, they'll be set to run after your policy. You just go in, you change it to before, if you need to. So when running Casper policies, Jamf has provided a variety of start options. So one particular interesting one in Casper 9 is network state change. So show of hands, how many folks are familiar with crankd for managing network state changes? Okay, all right. Casper provides that with the network state change now. So basically, anytime you have that kind of network change, you can have a policy triggered, which is kind of useful, especially if you have a policy that wants to tell you whether or not you're at home or at work. And one useful option is that Casper policies can be set to be manually triggered by a set keyword. Now, this can be leveraged by a script to manually run a Casper policy as part of the script's execution. Now, one way this can be leveraged is by having a script in one Casper policy check for certain conditions, and if those conditions are met, manually trigger that second Casper policy and run that policy's actions. So I've used this capability myself, and it's been very handy. And I'm going to be talking about that more in a few minutes. Casper's extension attributes are custom fields that you can create to collect almost any type of data from a computer. Extension attributes are tied to Casper's inventory update function, so they'll run on your machines whenever that update occurs. Because they run on all machines, be careful to write your extension attributes to properly accommodate running on all versions of OS 10 found in your environment. So there are several ways to create an extension attribute. You can manually create the extension attribute. You can use an extension attribute template, which is available from your Casper server. You can upload it from Jamf Nation. You can find them on GitHub. You can do a lot of things. But when you're creating a new extension attribute, you can select from several data types. There's string, and this is the one that's probably used the most because you can put in a script with this one. There's date. You can use this to make a date comparison. For example, you can set it to look for something from before a particular date, after a particular date, or more than X amount of days ago. And integer. You can use this to run a comparison between numeric values. Now, if you want to set up the most common kind of extension attribute, you would set the data type to be string, and then set the input type to be script. From there, a script editor will appear to allow you to add the script. Now, if you choose to populate an extension attribute using a custom script, any text returned to standard output between the result tags is forwarded onto the Casper server when the script runs. So here's an example where we're using a script in an extension attribute to display which Active Directory domain that a Mac is bound to. Now, when the script runs, the result variable gets populated. And as the last step in the script, the data stored in the result variable is then forwarded onto the Casper server. And one of the reasons that I wrote this is that we're doing a domain migration, and this was a great way to track who was on the old domain, who's on the new domain, and who wasn't bound at all. So everything discussed so far has been about how you can leverage scripting. But I also want to talk about a real-world example, like Jeremy did, of how I'm using scripting to help extend Casper's capabilities. So in my shop, we use a Xerox color printer along with a number of Canon printers. All my printers are in self-service, so our users can set this printer up for themselves on their Macs. Unlike our Canon printers, which use one printer driver for Macs running 10.5 and higher, our Xerox printer has 3 different drivers available. I support 10.5 through 10.9, so I needed to be able to accommodate all of them. So here's the workflow I wanted to use when the Xerox printer setup is requested via self-service. If the needed drivers are installed, just go ahead and set up the printer. If not, install the new drivers and then set up the printer. So the first part was figuring out if the needed Xerox drivers were installed. I didn't see an easy way to get the driver information from the installer receipts because Xerox. So I looked for something else that would have the version number. After some digging, I was able to confirm that the Xerox Features plugin located in Library Printers Xerox PDEs had the version number I was looking for, and that I could pull the version information using the defaults command. So from there, I built the script displayed up on the screen. Please don't squint, you probably can't read it. It's hard to see here because of its length. I've also got it posted to GitHub, and you can get it from the link shown on the screen.
Not Rick Astley. Not Rick Astley.
No, not Rick Astley. I love my audience. I would never do that. The script checks the OS of the Mac it's running on, checks the Xerox Features plugin for the version information, and either installs or skips installing the drivers using a manual policy trigger based on whether or not the Mac has the updated drivers. Now, the driver version is set using parameters 5, 6, and 7 in the Casper settings for the script. As always, where the rubber meets the road is how does this work for my users? Well, they go into self-service and they hit Add Printer. Forgive all the blacking out, you know. If they need updated drivers, they'll see this message while the drivers they need get installed silently in the background. Once the drivers are installed, or if no drivers were needed, the printer gets set up and they get this nice all done message. For those in the audience thinking, cool story, bro, but how do I do this? Full details are available from the link shown up on the screen.
Rich always has full details.
Now, that said, I'd like to close with these words of wisdom from my friend and colleague, John Kitzmiller. Before you pull out your script editor, see if what you want to do is supported already by your management system.
Very true.
So, thank you, especially to our hosts at Penn State for this great conference.
We wanted to get you clapping.
Yeah. For those of you in the live audience that are here, we appreciate that you picked our session. It does seem like the whole conference is here, so we really appreciate it. Please don't forget to submit feedback. And we have quite a bit of time remaining for questions, so we'd like to open the floor.
We're waiting for all those people we planted.
Come on, we're paying you in candy. Anybody have any questions?
We were only doing candy? I got confused about that.
It was, yes.
There's
Hang
a
on for the microphone
coming to you.
On the payload-free packages, you said they don't leave receipts. They don't always leave receipts. Can you trick it to leave in a receipt by drop in a dummy file somewhere?
Well,
If you're deploying a file with a package, it should leave a receipt.
yeah, because the whole point of a payload-free package is that it's not installing anything. However, if you wanted to, you could make it leave behind a dummy receipt by having that included in the script. However, if you want that, it may just be easier to just build a regular flat package and just install something into temp if you want that receipt.
All right.
One over there.
All right, so a follow on to that. You mentioned, and maybe this is just clarification, that flat packages built with Apple's package build don't drop receipts. What about flat packages built with other tools? Do you have any experience?
Flat packages built using package build, using Apple's no payload option, they don't leave receipts. Any other way you build a flat package, they leave receipts.
Okay.
It's specifically that use case where Apple built in this nice option for building a payload-free package. It's one of the options in package build. If you build it using that specific option, no receipt. Any other way, receipt.
So, all right. That's been my experience using white box packages.
Yeah,
I have
that'll leave behind receipts.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, and the other thing is if your particular tool happens to be running package build with the no, I forgot the option.
We'll just call it the payload-free option.
Right, with the payload-free option. That's a good.
Yeah.
So if your tool does that under the hood, it may have the same effect. So
Now, for those folks who are familiar with my tool, Payload Free Package Creator, that does use the payload-free option with package build. So packages built using my tool do not leave behind receipts. I have gotten queries from folks who said, "Hey, I used your thing with Monkey, and then Monkey started looping." I said, "Yeah, sorry about that." So just be aware, and that's actually a really good reason to use no package with Monkey because Monkey knows about it.
got to be more questions.
More questions.
Come on.
I'm going to start singing again. Question.
Okay,
Oh, thank God, the threat was enough.
So for those of us who don't know how Monkey knows about no package, that would be helpful to get a little bit more detail on. You said that in that circumstance, Monkey understands that there's no package receipt, correct?
Well, Monkey by default looks for package receipts. And
Correct.
for a package that doesn't lay down a receipt, it has nothing to check for. So in that case, the alternative would be to jump up to an installs array if you're watching for a file or a bundle or something on disk, or to jump the next way, all the way up to doing an install check script, which would be running a script to check for some condition on the system to determine whether something needs to be installed or not.
Got it. Thank you.
So the one thing to really remember about an install check script is that you're running all those install check scripts every time managed software update runs. So they should be as lightweight as possible, just like all of the other scripts that you want to do in your management systems. You don't want them to have a very much performance impact at all, if you can. And,
Yeah.
and for that reason, I try to avoid them, just so I have less scripting running.
Yeah. And the same point about Casper extension attributes. These run frequently on your machine, so please try to make sure that the performance hit is as low as possible when you write them.
But that doesn't mean don't use them.
Yeah,
I mean, because
yeah.
these things are useful.
Yeah.
So
We're just saying that if you basically, lean and mean is a good way to go. Or lean and friendly. Yeah. Any more questions? Yes, you in the back. Wait for the mic, please.
All right, so on the topic of lean and mean, I'm doing most of my scripting inside packages and inside Monkey, also in Bash. Greg gave a wonderful talk about Python. Great, cool. I'm thinking about switching to Python. What's this lean and mean impact about running these other types of scripts in Python? Is there any significant impact between the Bash shell versus Python? Does anyone have any anecdotal evidence or anything like that?
well, I think there's a couple of trade-offs there. So, and I'll take that first.
Absolutely, please.
With Bash and Python, you're both starting up some form of interpreter. I'm sure there's a little bit of more overhead with the Python interpreter. But on the other hand, there's a lot of programmer productivity that you can get from having that. So you have to weigh that as well.
All right, so Monkey being already in a Python environment, I don't get to reuse that Python environment. It's forking a whole, I see Greg shaking his head, thank you.
Right.
I get my own brand new copy of Python.
Yes. There may be some caching at the system level of modules that have been imported, but that you get your own Python.
Okay.
Yeah, one way to make them lean and mean is, leave out things that you don't need. Like, for example, don't, what's that command to make your machine heat up?
Tiffany?
Basically sending, hello to dev0.
Oh.
Yeah, don't do that.
How about DD?
So basically anything that introduces load onto your machine when it doesn't need to be there, try to trim that out whenever possible.
So, and when you're running some of the code checking tools, like the BB Flakes one that I mentioned, which is available for other editors, if you want to look that up, those kinds of tools can help you determine, maybe I'm importing too much for Python. So that was something that was discussed in Greg's session on Tuesday. So it'll say you're importing Foundation and you're not using it. So that's another thing, a way to save some resources.
Yep. Any more questions? Yes? You, sir?
Patrick?
Thinking of, and this may be more directed toward Greg, thinking of
He's
Monkey.
here.
Yeah, I know.
This is for the people in video, too. So.
With Monkey and installing a payload-free package versus using a no package, using a no package item.
Package info.
Yeah, thank you. What would be the advantage or disadvantage or the reason for using one over the other?
Well, I'll mention a few things while Mike is being passed.
Greg's not answering
Greg doesn't
that
want to
question.
say anything, but
No, I don't want to hijack your session. If you
no.
want to talk to me after the session, that's great.
No, this is great audience feedback too. So there's people that know more than we do. So that's great too. But from my perspective, one of the key reasons to make the choice is just what your team is comfortable with. And if you might be reusing the same code in other instances. So in the case where you might be reusing that same code, it may make sense to put it into a package. If you're going to use the same package in, say, Deploy Studio and Monkey, then it doesn't make as much sense to put it in a no package in Monkey, because you put it once into a payload-free package and you've got it available for both environments. Or maybe you're writing a script that you need to use in Create OS 10 install package. That's another case where, first of all, you want to make sure you're clear about which programming languages to use, because you can't use Python there. So, but you can use a package. So that's again a choice where I'd go more towards using a package, a payload-free package, than using a no package in Python or in Monkey. A lot of names here. And I practiced all of them before the session, of course.
Okay.
All right, a comment on that one I'll add on. If you are going to use, I primarily build payload-free packages. I've never used a no package. I like to have that package stick around. But if your tool provides the ability to build a flat payload package, there is a significant performance benefit to using that versus a bundle, because in Monkey at least, the bundle package has to be wrapped in a DIMage. So it has to download a DIMage, mount the DIMage, install the package out of it, versus a flat package which can be served straight off my Apache and doesn't have to mount the DIMage first. So if your tool can do that, again, I use white box packages to build these sorts of things, and that will speed up your deployment for that.
Another thing to consider there is that bundle-style packages have been around forever. Apple has, I believe, officially deprecated them, even to the extent that the documentation is still not available. But they haven't gotten rid of them yet, so they're still hanging around. I mean, even the 10.0 style packages are still hanging around and can run on the most recent OSs, as far as I know. Even though those packages the bundle-style packages are still around and still work, Apple clearly wants people to use payload-free flat packages if they can. So it does seem to make sense to move to those, because we could have bundle-style packages drop out from underneath us in some future OS release.
We just don't know. And one other thing to note about flat payload-free packages as opposed to bundle-style is that it's a relatively simple process to sign those packages. Apple provides good support for that. It is possible to sign a bundle style package, but for myself, I'm not familiar with that process. And
I don't
very
think it
few
is.
people do. No, you can do it because Case does it. Case doesn't do it with any Apple certificates. I think they got it from like a third-party verification. It was strange. But from that, I do know it is possible. But flat packages, Apple provides great tools for signing it. So for those folks that need to have Gatekeeper on in your environments, that's one thing to keep in mind, especially if you're providing a payload-free package to your users, which is actually a great way to provide a script to your users, because then all they need to know is open this up, hit run. You didn't need to tell them, okay, open this up, do this, do this, do this. Nope, payload-free package.
I was formerly in a university environment, and that was one way that we provided installations for students and faculty and staff home systems, was to give them packages that they could download from the university to get some similar things that they would need to use on their own personal computers. So certainly that's definitely
Yeah.
You can make packages not only for your management systems, but also for your end users if they have like home use rights or something like that
Right.
to use some of your systems.
One particular use case I found for that is there was a version of Network Connect on 10.6 that had a problem that you had to install Network Connect, and then you had to run a series of commands in order to fix Network Connect so it would actually run properly on 10.6. So I would run into folks who were like, my Network Connect is broken, what do? I would send them the instructions on how to uninstall. I would send them the installer, and then I would say, after you've run the installer, run this second installer, and then it will work. So that was a great use case, and payload-free packages are small, so I could just send that over email. Zipped up, of course.
Does anybody have any other tips and tricks
Yeah.
that they've come across?
Yeah.
Things that we didn't mention?
We freely admit we don't know everything.
I mean, this is a conference that's all about sharing.
Yeah.
So, we'd love to hear any of those. If you
Sharing
have
is caring. Friendship is magic. Have some candy.
I think there might be some cake in the lobby too.
Oh,
Carrot cake.
I think I got left out overnight.
The cake walked.
I love cakewalks. Any more questions? Any comments?
Any good jokes?
Any good jokes? Did someone say profile manager is a good joke? That's just
MCX in a profile walked into a bar.
Just want to say publicly, thanks for all you guys do for the community. That's awesome.
Thanks for all you guys do. Yeah.
All right. So, any other feedback? Any questions? Any comments?
One more here.
Yes.
Thank you.
It's turned into sitting room only.
I have, I guess, sort of a more general question, which is, there seem to be a lot of resources out there in terms of learning some of the foundational Bash and Python, other scripting tools. But I think there are probably some that are better suited than others to learning to do it in sort of a Maxis admin environment. And I wondered whether you guys had any particular experience with that. Maybe open the question to the room if not, in terms of where you might go to learn specific Python or Bash scripting for a Maxis admin environment rather than in a much more general sense.
I can't really speak for Bash scripting. I tended to pick up Bash scripting by finding projects and then hitting Stack Exchange and then writing it wrong and then fixing it and blowing up a few VMs. But for Python, I've actually had some education, though not enough yet. I used Codecademy, and a number of Mac admins were using, what was it, Coursera? I think it was Coursera last year.
I think so.
To learn more Python. I'm getting the signal. So, but those are the two that I know of. Codecademy will teach you how to play Battleship with Python. So for those Battleship enthusiasts out there, that might be a good course to take. It's going to be one of those things that one of the best ways I've found to learn really how to script is find a project, find a problem,
Yeah, that's it. You have to have a project.
and just keep working at it. I do encourage the use of virtual machines because if you blow those up, nobody cares. But yeah, honestly, find a problem. Because some really great things come out of, I've got a problem, or even just, oh man, this itches.
But a problem that's not already solved by your management tool.
Yes.
Because if there's a
Yes.
checkbox, just check the box. Or use DocuTil.
Yeah, or yes, if you or use yeah. Though that's not to say that reinventing the wheel is entirely a bad idea if you are doing it as a learning exercise. Because after all, yeah, I've got this wheel, but I don't understand how it goes round. I don't understand how the spokes work. You know, reinventing the wheel is great as a learning exercise. However, if you already know how to do it, and honestly, we never have enough time. But so in that case, I would advocate against reinventing the wheel if you already know and understand how that wheel works. But if you don't, why not?
So something I'd add to what Rich said, I know specifically for Python, there was at least one session during the week this week, I think, and I know there was one last year. I know I did the one with Nate Walk last year on trying to at least be able to get to read Python code as a sysadmin. So that was our aim with that session. So that would be in the resources from the 2013 conference. Some things that helped me learning Python were just lots of projects. And really specifically, one of the things I got into Python for was version checking. You know, you have to do a lot of version checking when you're a Mac sysadmin, and trying to parse out 10.4.11 as a version number for the OS in a shell script just didn't work for me. And I discovered that there was a way to do it in Python, and that was what set me off on the track that I've been on. I wouldn't say I'm great at Python, but I just keep plugging at it. There's lots of things that you can do with it. Let's say Greg has had some tutorials in the MacTech magazine. If you haven't subscribed to that, that's a good resource. I know Nate and I linked to some other resources in our session last year. One that I thought was pretty good, especially as a real gentle introduction, was How to Think Like a Computer Scientist. There's a series of that for different languages. I think Python is one of the first ones. But that's out there, and it's an open source textbook that was intended to be used for high school students, I believe. So it kind of geared towards that level of introduction.
And also, probably your greatest teacher out there is gonna be Google. If you don't know how to do something, look it up. You may find that needed fragment buried somewhere down in a forum post from 2003 where someone solved it in 2006. Stack Exchange is great. Search Stack Exchange, search GitHub.
And 3 months later, you're going to find that link is purple in your browser when you go and try to find it again.
Yeah.
Rich's page and also Jamf Nation has a ton of useful scripts too.
Yes.
If you're not a Casper user.
Yeah, my GitHub repo is github.com/rtrouten. I have several repositories stood up. The one that has the majority of my scripts is rtrouten_scripts. So feel free to steal anything you want. Anything that I have up there, I mean to be shared with other people. So don't worry about, oh, he doesn't want me to have this. Yes, I do. Absolutely. Take away. What?
Have some candy.
Oh, yes, have some candy. Please have some candy.
Plenty up here.
On your way out, have some candy. Any other questions, comments?
Or anybody have any other tips about learning either Bash or Python?
Yes. Up here?
Or back there?
I just have one quick tip about learning Python. There's a great startup, and it's been going for a couple of years, called Udacity. They have a great introduction to computer science class that's free, and it's all in Python. And then they recently have new OO, Introduction to Object-Oriented Programming, in Python too.
Okay.
Udacity. It's Peter Norvik from Virginia University. He goes over it. I don't know how to spell it.
Is it U as in the letter U, then
It's
dash
UDACITY.
There it is.
Okay. Feedback in the back? Or a question? Not sure. Probably feedback.
Sorry about the Hail Hydra thing. I couldn't help it.
That's fine.
Are you kidding? Seriously?
loved it.
That was awesome.
Somebody got it.
The best part of jokes is when they're understood.
Which is why I'm so frequently disappointed.
So I think this may actually be Tahiti and the Magical Place, where they sent Coulson, but yeah.
Yeah.
So during the development of this presentation, Rich and I saw the Captain America movie. So it was the weekend we got together to work on the slides. So.
Yep. I got to introduce him to the Alamo Drafthouse. If you've never been to the Alamo Drafthouse, find the closest one to you and go to it, and you'll be ruined for all of the theaters. Or at least that's my opinion.
Unless you like inexpensive movies.
That's true. It's not inexpensive, but it is awesome. Comments, feedback, doesn't necessarily have to be about scripting, could be on my general appearance or anything else. Ask an IRC, yeah. Oh, that is one thing. If you want help outside this conference, there is the OS 10 server IRC room. It is # OS 10 OS letter X dash server on Freenode. We're generally a pretty friendly bunch. You know, like a lot of Casper admins hang out in there. A lot of Monkey admins hang out in there. You know, if you.
I mean, besides geeky things like IRC, there's the Mac Enterprise mailing list,
Mac Enterprise mailing list, AFP 548. You know, there are resources out there. Please take advantage of them. Please do not be afraid to ask for help. Because after all, we are here to help each other. It's a good community that way.
I have a question that I'm not sure how it's going to be answered or if it's answerable. I'm fairly new to the field and just wondering, in a lot of the scripts that I've written, how do you kind of overcome ownership of that? You know, if you're working for a private organization, essentially anything you develop, I guess, is there property? Is there a good way? You know, I know you share a lot of scripts online. I don't know if that's just built into your contract that they don't own it, or, you know, has anybody dealt with, how do you take that with you to the next job? Kind of thing?
I will say in that case, I work for an extremely generous employer who gives me time and does not, you know, I mean, they also have intellectual property agreements, but they've never given me any problems about it. You know, it's going to be one of those things that you may just have to work out with your employer. And also, you know, make sure you understand the confines of what that means. Does it mean if you develop it during work time that it's theirs? Does that mean that when you're not at work, it's yours? You know, if you're worried about that kind of thing, talk with your HR folks and just be like, look, I would like to do some outside development. I would like it to be mine. Talk with them. Figure out the answers. Don't just wonder about it. Yes, hand in the back. Oh, and get it in writing. Very important. Get it in writing.
So storing passwords and sensitive information in scripts, like for instance, I use a little script that uses DSBind, and of course you need the local password. You need an Active Directory login to you know, create the machine name. You need Open Directory logins to create the machine in Open Directory. I'm still using that. So do you guys have any tips on storing passwords so that other people can't find them? I mean, I've been lucky so far because I have my script like encrypted and in binary format, but it's still, you know, just a kind of encoding.
Yeah, it's kind of a tricky one because you could store it in something that needs to be unlocked, but then you need the password to unlock it in the script. It's one of those things where at some point in the chain you've got something in the clear, and try to avoid those situations whenever possible. Sometimes it's just not possible, in which case the best thing I can say is do your best to make sure it's not logged, and do your best to be speedy.
You know, and also, you know, clean up afterwards.
Yeah, clean up is very important. Leave no trace.
Yeah, one way you can do that in the shell is with the SRM command.
Yeah.
Rather than just RM, it's the secure remove. So it does a multi-pass erase.
Yeah, on a lot of my scripts on up on my repo, a number of them are set to be run with a launch, to be triggered by a launch daemon. And at the end of the script, you'll see something that removes the launch daemon, and then it says SRM 0, and that basically says make the script blow up.
Which may or may not do anything special on an SSD, but
yeah, that's true.
So now that we're in that world,
I was just going to comment on that. For scripts like that I have that I want to make public or something, I make it so the passwords could be parameters that you enter at execution. So that's one way to tackle that. So you don't have to put the password in the script itself.
Yeah. So that's two issues: the script when it's running in your environment, and the script when you're sharing it. So.
Yeah. And for those using Casper, that might be a good way of handling that particular issue is by assigning it to one of the parameter labels and then passing along that $ variable to the script. So it's not actually, it gets passed along by Casper, but it's not actually resident in that script.
I mean, you've got 11 parameters in a Casper policy. You could potentially just write one script that is run by every policy and just have everything parameterized to the point that you never need to have a second script. You're just passing every possible option.
That couldn't possibly
think about
be a
that.
maintenance nightmare.
No, it couldn't possibly be.
No.
One thing I'll just
that was a
add on
joke.
to that, we have similar problems, is try to isolate your services by service accounts whenever possible, so that if you are, say, binding something to Active Directory, the account that you have in your script should only have rights to add something to your directory, nothing else. So don't use your own account, for God's sakes, and don't use anybody else's that you don't like, unless you really don't like them.
Yeah. Service accounts are great. Yeah. And as you mentioned, narrowly tailor them to just the task you need.
And a comment about passing in the arguments on scripts, that's not a guaranteed way to keep that safe, because if someone can inspect the process table, they'll see that script running with those arguments. One of those arguments is going to be your password. I get around this mostly by, I have a few scripts that do sensitive stuff, and they only do that stuff when it's on my bench setting up the machine before I give it to the user. And I set it up so that, I shouldn't have to do that ever again. One exception, of course, is the one that ensures that Apple doesn't nuke my Wi-Fi password. But my network is WEP only, so there's only so much I can care about a WEP password these days. But luckily, this conference showed me how to do it with a profile, which I'm hoping will be a little better.
Anybody else? We've got 13 minutes left. Hand in the back. Hand in the back.
See, it's good we went fast.
Yeah, lots of time for questions. I mean, that was all part of the plan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is there a best practice, or I'm not even sure if it's possible, but for, let's say, a user on first login and they're using their AD credentials, to have that scripted to automatically have, say, their Outlook profile set up on first login?
Actually, yes, there is, and I believe a gentleman who has come up with the way to do that is sitting in our audience here. Bill Smith, if you wouldn't mind taking that one. Sorry, Bill, didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I was like, but the man is right there.
Yes, it's possible. It's kludgy, but it's possible. I've got a website called officeformachelp.com. And if you go out there, I do have an older version of the script that will do it. Essentially what you have to do is take an Apple script that I've written, you create an empty Microsoft user database, and then you set that script up to run at first launch. And that script will go out, check Active Directory, pull back the email address, pull back first name, last name, if your Mac is based on or bound to Active Directory, and it sets it up for you. It's not pretty. I wish there were a cleaner way to do it, but it works. I've got a lot of folks using it. So officeformachelp.com. Get a hold of me through that. Send me an email, and I'll actually probably send you to a little bit newer version of that script than what I've got posted. But the one that I've got posted is more supportable.
And to follow up on that, I'm also in my own shop using a version of Bill's script. What I'm doing is I just have an Apple script that appears on the user's desktop that says, set up Genelia email. When they double click on it, it asks them for their email address. It figures out what their username is, and it sets up Outlook for them. And for us, that's been a great help. The only downside has been that occasionally people click on that multiple times. And what that'll do is it'll set up another copy of your Outlook account and another copy of your Outlook account. I had one guy who was accidentally using it as the alias to launch Outlook, and he had He's like, I just keep getting prompted for my password. Make it stop.
Let the record show there was much groaning.
What? No, well, it's meant to add an account. It doesn't clean up. because
Version 2.
It's not meant to be. It's not meant to be destructive. It was, it's meant to help.
So, but getting things done at first login is there are various options for doing that. There's some people who've already built solutions that do launch agents that will trigger run once type scripts. That can be handy, for example, if you have to set up accounts of this sort, or even regular old preferences, like we've been talking about profiles and CF preferences and things this week. Oftentimes you'll want to use the tools that Apple already has, like Profiles or MCX, if that still works for your particular application, and you have a management tool that supports them. Use those first. But if you have something where you have like unique user information, like a username or something unique to each user that you have to add, that's a case where you can add a script that fits into one of these run once frameworks. Trying to remember names of some. Anybody have? It's on the tip of my tongue.
Well, there's NateWalk Script Runner.
Right, Script Runner is one.
Script Runner, I believe Joe Chilcote wrote, what is his called? Is it called Outset? Yeah. Outset. Yeah, Joe's tool is neat because it combines kind of the capabilities of Script Runner, which will run scripts either once or every time, and it also, he built in the capabilities of first boot package install. So it's a very, it'll install packages at login if you wanted to. It'll run scripts at login or startup as you want to. It's a very neat tool. So I'd say Outset. Yeah, he has it up on GitHub.
About the Outlook stuff, I'm curious. Outlook has a built-in auto discovery system. Do people find that unreliable? Is that why we script around it?
That assumes that your Exchange administrators have set up auto discover correctly.
Okay, all right. So
I've actually
I'll jump out to this. My Exchange administrators have not set up Outlook correctly for that. But I have written in PHP an application on my web server that it's what auto discover is pointed at. And so it makes that request, and what my script does is it queries Active Directory, pulls that information for you, and sends back the information Outlook's expecting. And this actually works beyond Mac. It also works on Windows for people who are setting up Outlook. So we do have the ability to work around this sort of stuff. Now, it could be that this won't work in some IT departments. When my IT department, I have the ability to stand up a web server and call it autodiscover.nrio.edu or something like that. It's probably something I should put out there and share that people can get access to. I've done another one of these for Thunderbird as well, so it gets both of these up and self-configuring. So there's some situations where, yeah, there's a great Mac-specific way to do this, but we also have a way that's cross-platform that can help the other guys to do this. And someone in front of me, I think, had a comment on this too.
Well, and I'd like to say on that, I was involved in the setup of an Exchange 2007 environment, and one of the things we paid a lot of attention to was auto-discover, to try to get that to work across mobile devices, Macs, Windows clients, and there's a little bit different requirements for each. They're all, it's mostly the same. And it does take some work, but it can be done. So it's something where if you can go upstream and get that solved at the Exchange level or Link or whatever you're using that uses the auto discover, and I think Microsoft is even changing that again in the next versions of these things, then try to go upstream if you can. Get it solved for all clients all at once if you can.
Are there any good resources you use about that?
Cudgels?
Our colleague Nick McSpadden has a great thing he calls the crowbar of compliance. One day I hope to see it.
So there is an auto-discover testing service that Microsoft offers. So if your Exchange administrators are not aware of that, they should definitely be aware of that. That's a case where they even tell you on that service, whatever account you're using, make sure it's a throwaway account or you can change the password because you're giving it access to your environment. But that's something to look for. I think there might be some what's the scripting language that
PowerShell?
PowerShell. I think there might even be some PowerShell applets for that as well.
I discovered this when my Outlook client started blowing up at home.
Yeah, so even if your Exchange Auto Discover is working properly, and if I inadvertently cast aspersions on our own Exchange administrators, they did set it up correctly. I just wanted to do some additional formatting and other things with my script.
Right, you could still add to that.
Yeah, you can, yeah. But yeah, that's a perfectly valid thing where, you can't always control everything about your environment. So I believe there was a question in the back.
Yeah, I have the mic now. I was just going to add that I'm the Exchange admin for my organization, among everything else. Network admin and Mac admin. But anyway, AutoDiscover is like the easiest thing to set up on Exchange. So I would be really surprised if, compared to all the other problems you have with Exchange, I'd be surprised if an Exchange admin wouldn't set it up. It's just a URL basically. So.
I think the problem had to do with our split DNS that people
And beyond what you get from AutoDiscover, you may want to set up default rules and various other things too.
Yeah.
So, I've even gone to the extent of having a script that used assistive device access to control the GUI to set up rules, because some of those features weren't scriptable in older clients.
Since it happens so infrequently to say something good about Microsoft, piggybacking on what he said, my Exchange admin set it up right, and for us it was simply in each domain, we just did a DNS name, or actually a CNAME or something that forwarded it off to the mothership. So I would still have the off-campus problem, but it works as well as, can be expected. It works most of the time. So.
Okay.
So it looks like we're at the end.
Yeah, we're coming up on 3 minutes. So thank you so much for coming.